Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Zechariah. And I lifted up my eyes, and I saw, and behold, a man with a measuring line in his hand. And I said, Where are you going? And he said to me, To measure Jerusalem, so that I may see how great its width and length may be. And behold, the angel who was speaking with me went out, and another angel went out to meet him. And he said to him, Hurry, speak to this young man, saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited without walls, because of the multitude of men and beasts of burden in its midst. And I will be to it, says the Lord, a wall of fire all around, and in glory I will be in its midst. Sing praise and rejoice, daughter of Zion. For behold, I am coming, and I will live in your midst, says the Lord. And many nations will be joined to the Lord in that day, and they will be my people, and I will live in your midst.
The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock. The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock. He will ransom Jacob, redeem his people. The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock. Hear the word of the Lord, O nations. Proclaim it to the distant isles. He who scattered Israel now gathers them home. He guards his people as a shepherd guards his flock. The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock. He will ransom Jacob, redeem his people. Shall ransom Jacob, redeem him from the hand of his conqueror. Shouting, they shall mount the heights of Zion. They shall come streaming to the blessings of God.
Then the virgins shall dance with joy. Soul and gladden their hearts. The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock. He will ransom Jacob, redeem his people. Soul and gladden their hearts forevermore. The Lord will guard us as a shepherd guards his flock.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. But while all were wondering over all that he was doing, he said to his disciples, Store these words in your hearts, for it will happen that the Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men. But they did not understand this word, and it was concealed from them, so that they did not perceive it, and they were afraid to question him about this word. Join us for today's reflection. Saint Vincent de Paul never meant to revolutionize charity. Born to peasant farmers in 17th century France, he became a priest for the same reason many young men from poor families joined the clergy. It was the surest path to a comfortable life. He wanted a prestigious parish, a secure income, and the social status that came with being a man of the cloth. Then he encountered the poor. Not as objects of religious duty or theological concepts, but as human beings whose suffering was immediate, real, and demanding. The transformation didn't happen overnight. For years, Vincent lived the conventional priestly life he'd planned, but gradually, something began shifting in his understanding of what it meant to serve God. Today's gospel captures the psychological state that preceded Vincent's transformation. Luke tells us that while everyone was amazed at Jesus' miracles, Jesus himself was focused on something his disciples couldn't grasp. The Son of Man is to be handed over to men. The text adds this devastating observation, but they did not understand this saying. Its meaning was hidden from them so that they should not understand it, and they were afraid to ask him about it. Think about that fear. They sensed Jesus was saying something important, something that would change everything they thought they knew about following him. But instead of asking for clarification, they chose ignorance. They preferred the comfort of their current understanding to the risk of learning something that might demand more than they were prepared to give. Vincent spent his early priesthood in exactly this state. He knew intellectually that serving the poor was part of Christian discipleship, but he avoided looking too closely at what that actually meant because he suspected it would cost him the comfortable life he'd worked so hard to achieve. The breakthrough came when he was forced to confront a dying woman whose spiritual needs he couldn't meet with conventional pastoral care. She needed food, shelter, medical attention, practical help that his theological training hadn't prepared him to provide. More troubling, she needed these things not as charity from her social superior, but as justice from someone who claimed to represent the God who cares for the widow and orphan. This encounter shattered Vincent's comfortable assumptions about priesthood and forced him to ask the question his disciples were afraid to ask. What does it actually mean to follow Christ? Zechariah's prophecy speaks directly to this kind of transformation. Sing and rejoice, O daughter Zion. See, I am coming to dwell among you, says the Lord. The prophet promises that God will not remain distant, but will take up residence among his people. But there's a condition implied in this promise. You have to be willing to recognize where God is actually dwelling. Vincent discovered that God wasn't primarily dwelling in the sanctuary where he celebrated Mass or in the comfortable rectory where he lived. God was dwelling among the sick, the hungry, the abandoned, the people polite society preferred to keep at a manageable distance. This realization led to one of the most radical experiments in Christian history. Vincent began organizing what we now call systematic charity, hospitals, orphanages, training programs for clergy, international missions. But what made his work revolutionary wasn't its scale. It was his insistence that serving the poor wasn't optional for Christians. It was the most reliable way to encounter Christ himself. The Jeremiah passage captures the emotional reality of this discovery. The Lord will guard us, as a shepherd guards his flock. The Lord shall ransom Jacob. He shall redeem him from the hand of his conqueror. Vincent found that when he stopped trying to maintain his distance from human suffering and instead allowed himself to be pulled into the mess of real pastoral care, he experienced a kind of freedom he'd never known. But here's what made Vincent's witness so challenging for his contemporaries and remains challenging for us. He insisted that this transformation wasn't optional for people who claim to follow Christ. If you're not regularly encountering the poor in ways that change how you live, Vincent argued, you're not really encountering Christ at all. He famously told his followers, "It is only for your love alone that the poor will forgive you the bread you give to them." This wasn't false humility. It was clear-eyed recognition that the poor were doing the wealthy a favor by allowing them opportunities to practice the love that makes salvation possible. Vincent's life demonstrates what happens when you stop being afraid to ask the hard questions about what following Christ actually requires. The disciples in today's gospel knew Jesus was saying something important about sacrifice and suffering, but they chose to remain ignorant rather than risk having their comfortable assumptions challenged. Vincent made the opposite choice. When confronted with evidence that his comfortable priesthood wasn't sufficient for authentic Christian discipleship, he didn't look away. He leaned in. He asked the hard questions. He allowed his life to be completely restructured around what he discovered. The result wasn't just personal transformation. It was institutional revolution that created new ways of organizing Christian charity that continue functioning 4 centuries later. But it started with one man's willingness to stop avoiding the implications of what he claimed to believe. The question Vincent's life poses to all of us is simple but searching. What truths about following Christ are you afraid to understand because you suspect they would require changes you're not ready to make? What questions are you avoiding because you're comfortable with your current level of commitment? Because Vincent discovered that the cost of really following Christ is everything you thought you wanted, and the reward is everything you actually need.